Kyle Larson just exposed the truth, the kind no one at Hendrick Motorsports dared to speak aloud. It wasn't during a post-race press conference. It wasn't scripted into a victory speech. No, it was raw, candid, and it came straight from the mouth of the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series champion during a revealing SiriusXM interview that shook the garage area to its core. And what he said? It wasn't just about racing. It was about chaos, confusion, and a near meltdown inside one of the most powerful organizations in NASCAR history. There was definitely some truth to that. It was just mentally draining, Larson confessed, with how I just didn't do a good job. This wasn't victory lap talk. This was a man pulling back the curtain on a season that almost broke him and nearly shattered Hendrick's throne. See, by the time Larson hoisted the championship trophy in Phoenix, most fans had already forgotten the mess that came before it, but Larson hadn't. Behind the polished finish was a slump so deep, so disorienting, even he began to lose confidence. Let me explain. The year started bold, ambitious. Larson announced he'd go for the double, racing the Indianapolis 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 on the same day. A dream few have attempted, and even fewer have finished. But it all came crashing down, literally. He wrecked out of the Indy 500 on lap 91. Hours later, he got collected in a wreck at Charlotte. 2 races, 2 DNFs. And just like that, the momentum was gone. Larson admitted, a lot went on. I think there was definitely some truth to that. It was just mentally draining. I didn't do a good job. I was down on myself, then lost some confidence. And then, all at the same time, I think our race cars. I think we got a little bit down the wrong path, and we didn't quite realize it for a while. We just kind of lived in that, slow state. That slow state wasn't just a bad weekend. It was a mid-season collapse. The team that once swaggered into race weekends with top 10 speed couldn't buy a clean finish. They missed the mark, consistently. And worst of all, they didn't know why. I think we got a little bit down the wrong path on our race cars, and we didn't quite realize it for a while, Larson admitted again. So yeah, we just kind of lived in that slow state. This wasn't just a setup issue. This was an identity crisis. The crack showed loudest in the first round of the playoffs. Darlington, Gateway, Bristol, 3 races, 0 top 10s. A Hendrick car flailing while others surged. The turning point? It came quietly, tucked into a cool September afternoon at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Larson finally clawed back into the top 10. It wasn't a win, it wasn't even flashy, but it was a spark. From that moment, everything changed. Not overnight, but through brutal honesty, painful reflection, and a lot of long nights in the shop. I actually think being as slow as we were made us a better, stronger team as far as execution, Larson explained. We went to Darlington and struggled as a whole. Eye-opening, I think. Then we quickly figured out where we had gotten off, and then I feel like we got back on track and competitive and running up front. That wasn't coach speak. That was survival mode. Mistakes were dissected. Engineers tore down old setups. Mechanics worked overtime. Post-race debriefs became confessional booths. Hendrick Motorsports, the empire, had been humbled. And Larson? He wasn't leading. He was learning. He didn't pretend everything was fine. He exposed the mental toll of leading a team through a slump you don't understand. I was kind of down on myself then, and lost some confidence, he repeated. And then I think all at the same time, we just kind of lived in that slow state. But slowly, painfully, they climbed out of it. Lap leads returned, stage wins stacked, and just when it looked like they might fall short, the number 5 team surged back into title contention. What happened next? It'll blow your mind. What happened next? Kyle Larson became a 2-time NASCAR Cup Series champion. But here's the twist. He didn't lead a single lap in the championship race. Read that again. He finished 3rd at Phoenix Raceway. Ryan Blaney and Brad Keselowski were ahead of him. And yet, when the checkered flag dropped, it was Larson who was crowned champion. Why? Because for 10 straight playoff weeks, the number 5 team did the impossible. They executed. Not perfectly, not dramatically, but consistently. They clawed, scratched, and strategized their way forward with 0 room for error. No dominant race wins, just relentless discipline and survival. This wasn't about being the fastest car. It was about being the most unbreakable team. Every person who turns a wrench, builds an engine, engineers our setups, or drives a hauler, this championship belongs to you, Larson said after the race. That wasn't just a cliche line. That was a man acknowledging war. Because this title wasn't gifted, it was carved out of the wreckage of a broken mid-season. And Larson made it clear, Hendrick Motorsports didn't carry him to this title. They rebuilt each other. A special thank you to Mr. Hendrick and Mrs. Hendrick and everyone at Hendrick Motorsports, Larson said. The trust and support you've given me since day one has completely changed my life. By then, it had been 5 years since Larson joined Hendrick. 32 wins, 2 titles, and yet, 2025 would stand out not for domination, but for something far more meaningful: durability. This year wasn't easy, he admitted. We faced challenges from the very start, losing people we cared about, moments where we weren't as competitive as we wanted to be, and weekends that just didn't go our way. He was talking about more than bad pit calls or poor handling. He was talking about loss, emotional strain, the stuff fans don't see between Sundays, the weight that never leaves you when the car is parked. And that's what made this title different. Behind the scenes, Cliff Daniels, Larson's crew chief, didn't just call race strategy. He re-engineered how the entire number 5 team worked. Simulation strategies were overhauled. Debriefs became more open. Adjustments were bold, sometimes uncomfortable, but they had no choice. Hendrick Motorsports wasn't just defending their name, they were fighting for it. Larson's ability to evolve became his biggest weapon. He wasn't just talented, he became a thinker, a student, a leader who could navigate slow cars, tight calls, and emotionally burned out weekends. And that's why they survived. The final 10 races were like walking a tightrope in a hurricane. Every mistake could end it, but they kept marching. Steady, sharp, stoic. Larson didn't panic when others did. When the air got dirty, when the tires gave out, when restarts turned to chaos, he stayed locked in. That became the secret weapon. He wasn't trying to be flashy, he was trying to be flawless. And that's what made him lethal. But this championship wasn't just Larson's story. It was a reflection of Hendrick Motorsports as a whole. Rick Hendrick, the man behind the empire, watched his team bend, but never break. Changes were made, personnel shifted, and yet the ship held. Because that's what great teams do. They adapt, even when no one's watching. And when the final chapter of 2025 was written, it wasn't about glory, it was about growth. Painful, personal, and honest. As Larson looks ahead to 2026, the hunger hasn't gone away. In fact, it's louder. The Daytona 500 looms on February 15th, and it's still a prize he hasn't conquered. And maybe, just maybe, the double will return. If the timing, the resources, and the preparation align, don't be shocked if Larson takes another shot at it. But this time he'll come at it with scars, with perspective, with the grit of a man who's been to the bottom of the mountain and climbed his way back up. Because here's what Kyle Larson taught us. Championships don't always look like domination. Sometimes, they look like rescue missions. And sometimes, the real trophy isn't the one you raise on the stage. It's the one you earn in silence, behind closed garage doors after midnight. So now it's your turn. What do you think? Was this Larson's most impressive championship ever? Or is it proof that even Hendrick can crack under pressure? Let me know in the comments. Because in NASCAR, the truth always finds the finish line.